Our next guest says a new crisis is actually on its way. Chris Whalen of Institutional Risk Analytics joins us on the Fast Line. Wales, it is great to speak with you.
Hello, Melissa.
All right, you say the banking industry is entering a new period of crisis. Why? Because they're generating a lot of cash. I mean, in fact, J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon just said that it's going to generate $75 billion, I think, by 2013. That's about half of its market cap. What's the problem here?
They say they're generating cash based on their GAAP statements. But if you look at the presentation I gave at AEI earlier this week, the dollar amount of net interest coming through the banks is falling. It has fallen 35% since the peak in 2007. It's right in the FDIC quarterly for everybody to look at, okay? The other issue is the operational expense of dealing with foreclosures, what you call servicing, which is going through the roof. So you have declining interest income on one side of the house, and you have rising non-interest expense on the other. And my guess is, my projection for my clients, is that we're going to see the efficiency ratio, which is the dollar cost of revenue, go up close to 100% for the large banks. That means they're going to be bleeding cash, Melissa. They're not going to be generating cash.
All right, so this projection of $75 billion in excess capital out the window. According to your projections, Wales, then, when do the chickens come home to roost? And what kind of time frame are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at, I think, the next 3 to 6 months. The reason we're seeing foreclosure moratoria is partly because of the legal and the political issue, obviously, right? But really what's going on here is that the banks can't handle any more foreclosures. Their servicing departments don't have the capacity to own and operate real estate. What we need to do is create some new vehicles, REITs, really, to take ownership of these properties because the banks can't handle it. Well, I think we're going to end up restructuring these banks using the Dodd-Frank legislation, ironically.
Hey, Chris, it's Joe. You know, listening to what you're saying here, I'm thinking two things. Number one, that banks will continue to hoard cash. Number two, probably more problematic, would be that home price values themselves have another leg down. Do you see that?
Well, definitely. Fannie and Freddie are the biggest sellers of real estate in the United States. Fannie Mae is the biggest landscaping company in the United States now, too, by the way.
Right.
And as I say, banks are not equipped to be owners of real property. When their assets get illiquid, they can't lend. And the expense of, believe me, in the 90s, this was a serious problem. But where we are today, and looking at the backlog of foreclosures, the mind boggles when you start thinking about the expense of dealing with these properties.
Right.
But what's happening is the banks are walking away from the properties.